I'm going to try to close out each one of my podcast episodes with some dating advice, based on some of the stuff getting sent to me. I'm down for it. Y'all down for it? I'm down for it. Yeah, I can do that. So Paul Pierce gave advice, and I'm very serious with my advice. I take my advice very seriously because it's important to me that it works. If anybody comes to me and they say, Stephen A., the advice didn't work for me, I'm upset. Now, there's plenty of men and women over the years listening to me when I was doing radio shows and television shows. They're like, damn, Stephen A., that really, really worked, bro. It really helped my relationship. You the man. So I take this very, very seriously. And I was a disc jockey in college, too. I had my own show at night, at least 2-3 nights a week where I was playing nothing but slow jams, R&B. They still thank me to this day, by the way. But anyway, so Paul Pierce sends this out, this tweet just the other day. He said, if a girl asks a guy on a date and make the reservation and invite her girlfriend and you are the only guy, does the guy have to pay even if he got a lot of money? Or how that works? It's what he said. It's what he said. Let me help the brother out. The answer is no. You do not have to pay, but you should if you can afford it. You see, relationships come and go. Stuff don't always work out. You in love, then you're not in love. You in lust, then you're not in lust. Infatuation ebbs and flows, depends on your mood. For a woman, it's how he looks at her. How he makes her feel, because she always remembers how you make her feel. For a man, we're more visual in our certain ways. We covet what we see, and the more we like it, the more we like you. There have been times in my life when I've gotten into an argument. I recall one time, many, many years ago, I got into an argument, and an ex got on my damn nerves. And I said, you know what? Go home. Call her a car service. Take her home. And she was pouting. She walked. She walked into the bedroom. But when she walked into the bedroom, her figure was sticking out in a very voluptuous and entertaining way. And you know what I said to her when I saw that? I said, can you come here, please? I said, what we were arguing about, it's really not that important. It's really not that important. Forget all the stuff that I said. It ain't even that important no more. It's not that important. My bad. My bad. I'm sorry. Because I knew I was going to want her. See what I'm saying? What I'm saying to you is this. That's lust. Lust and love and all of that stuff. In terms of your desire for somebody, it ebbs and flows. But you know what should never ebb and flow? Your core decency when it comes to your treatment of her. You can get in arguments and curse her out. She gonna get in arguments and curse you out. Lord knows you're calling each other stuff that can't be repeated, especially for FCC Airways. That stuff happens in relationships. But the core of who you are, when it gets really, really thick, how you treat her matters. And you know how you should treat her? You should think about the women you love most. Your mama, your sisters, your nieces, your daughter, stuff like that. How would you want them treated? Even if they could afford it. If they were out with a man and that man had it, you know you would want him to dig into his pocket, pull out of his wallet, and pay for that meal. Just as much as you would want him to get up and pull the chair out from her when she's standing up, push the chair in for her when she's sitting down, open that car door for her when she's getting in, close that car door once she's in. It's called class. It's called decency. It's called etiquette. It's called manhood. Never deviate from that, no matter how they make you feel. Because when you alone at home in the mirror, all you see is you. The best of you or the worst of you? Now get on out of here. Daniel Perry, by now you've heard that name. He's he's a U.S. Marine veteran. I'm sorry. He's the U.S. Marine veteran who held what has been described, or who has been described as a homeless street artist named Jordan Neely in a chokehold that ended up being fatal on a New York subway train earlier this month. And Perry's 24 years of age. After some hesitancy, after an investigation into the matter, he was arrested, surrendered to police, and indicted on second-degree manslaughter charges. He's 24 years of age. If you recall, he was on a subway train, and Jordan Neely came in there, took his shirt off, was very loud and what have you. He's a black man. Daniel Penny is white, and Jordan Neely was loud, took off his shirt, was talking about how he was hungry, he was frustrated, and more importantly, he didn't care if he died. And there were some people on the train who felt that he was a bit erratic, to say the least. It's not clear how endangered they felt, but it's safe to say that he, at the very least, made people uncomfortable. Before he knew it, the U.S. Marine veteran Daniel Perry came up behind him, put him in a chokehold, wrestling him to the ground. There were others who were helping him, but he was the lone individual who put Jordan Neely in the chokehold. Jordan Neely ultimately died. And as a result of that, there are people all over the place who are taking sides. We believe that the conviction should be for murder because that was intentional, said Neely family attorney Lennon Edwards this past Friday morning. At some point when people are screaming, "Let him go, you're going to kill him," he could have chosen to let him go, but he didn't. And what he did, and what did he think would happen if he didn't? He had to know he would die. He had to, said another Neely family attorney, Dante Mills, as Neely's father and aunt stood by. Mills later told CNN's Anderson Cooper the courts have to look at how reasonable Penny's actions were. Quote, when a lot of us think of self-defense, it's built in. You're defending yourself from something. That means you're not first to act. Jordan Neely never touched him. He never hit him. He never lunged in his direction. In fact, Daniel Perry came from behind him and put him in a chokehold. So is that reasonable? That's their side. Daniel Penny and his attorneys have another side. Quote, he risked his own life and safety for the good of his fellow passengers. The unfortunate result was the unintended and unforeseen death of Mr. Neely, Penny's attorney said in a statement on Thursday. Penny restrained Neely, 30 years of age, on a Manhattan subway after Neely began shouting he was hungry, thirsty, and had little to live for. He was pronounced dead at the hospital. His death was ruled a homicide, though the designation doesn't mean there was intent or culpability. A spokesperson for the New York City office of the chief medical examiner said earlier this week, noting at the time it was a matter for the criminal justice system to determine. Understand that's very, very important. Because when they say here, it doesn't designate, that designation doesn't mean intent or culpability. What they're saying is you may not have intended to do it. You may not be, quote unquote, culpable. But if a person died, you can still find yourself behind bars, albeit at a significantly lighter charge than first-degree murder, of course. I've been torn because as a person that rode the subways every day for the first part of my life, I have to confess that certain erratic behavior on a subway train is far from surprising. That was years ago. Times have changed. And when you see people being harmed every day, particularly in the subways of New York City, when you see the violence that's disseminated over the airwaves throughout this country, when you see folks constantly encountering some sort of danger, it's hard to predict or to assume what is and what isn't. And the first order of business is to protect yourself. Deontay Wilder, former heavyweight champion of the world in the sport of boxing, recently got himself in trouble because he was carrying a weapon. And I believe it was in the state of California. And, you just can't do something like that. And I don't have the quote in front of me, but he basically said, man, better safe than sorry. That was all. That was my only intent. I'm trying to keep myself safe. Because every time we turn on the airwaves, no matter what network it is, we see some level of violence being exacted against innocent civilians across this country. Florida, Dallas, Texas, the list goes on and on. Every damn where you turn, the innocent amongst us are being victimized. And so if you are an individual, in this case, a Daniel Penny, and you are a Marine, it is plausible. Remember, to protect and serve, we talk about police officers, the Marines, the few, the proud, because they'll do things that most people won't do. I have military members in my family. They think about that first. They're not going to sit idly by if folks are in danger. And when you're a soldier, one would surmise there's a level of bravery that you have that kicks in that the average person doesn't have. So on that level, I can understand where Daniel Penny's coming from. The problem is, if you're skilled enough to know how to implement a chokehold, then one would surmise you're wise enough to know when you've restrained the individual enough that you can let go of the chokehold so you don't kill them. Especially if you had help on the train with you as you restrained him. Why was it necessary to keep him in that chokehold? You had help. You had him restrained. You could have let him go, turned him over, and held him down till the police came. Why didn't you? These are legitimate questions. It requires answers. But it also requires us being mindful enough of the times that we're living in and the level of fear it's instilled in the average person out there. Because you just don't know. You don't want to be, you're almost like a wannabe police officer. You know how the cops, some cops, and I'm not talking about cops shooting black people. That's not what we're talking about here. Not this time. It's happened. We know it's happened, but that's not what we're talking about here. If you find yourself encountering a potentially volatile situation, you got a split second to react. And your first order of business is it's them or me. Now, you could say that Daniel Penny wasn't in danger because he was never touched. Is he supposed to wait until he's touched? Is he supposed to wait until another passenger is touched? Ladies and gentlemen, that's why $1.7 million have been donated to his defense fund. Because we have American citizens from all over the place that are donating to his defense fund because they believe he was a good Samaritan that doesn't deserve to be incarcerated over a situation like this. Now, we know AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the representative out of New York, we know she feels he murdered him. We know others feel the same way that she does, but there's plenty of politicians who feel otherwise. At the end of the day, our justice system has to do its due diligence to find out the intricate details of what truly transpired. And then do an investigation into Daniel Penny's background to find out what he does know. Because if you do find out that the level of training he received was extensive enough for him to know when to let go of a chokehold, and he didn't do that, now he's got a problem. But without us knowing that, this is the world we're living in. Because we never know what level of fear is going to be instilled in us in a particular moment and how we're going to react to it. And a lot of times, particularly in this day and age, people are quick to say, let me attack now and answer questions later, because better them than me. That's just the truth. Let's deal with that and find out more. I don't know whether it was righteous or not. I know I'm sorry that a man is dead. I'm very sorry about that. And if Daniel Penny held on to this man's throat for 15 minutes, that is a different animal. But if we find out he held on to his throat for 2 or 3 minutes, and that's what killed him, and that's usually not something that would kill somebody, it's a different matter. We'll find out the details in the days and the weeks to come. I have never seen a superstar in the game of basketball play in a game 7 as badly as James Harden played this past Sunday in Boston. Now, Embiid stunk too. Let's be real. Embiid was a disappointment. He was my vote for league MVP. I don't regret it one bit. He deserved it. But I expected the MVP to show up Sunday. I didn't expect what I saw. I didn't expect Embiid to score 15 points on 5 of 18 shooting. 1 for 6 in the second half for 2 points. And do absolutely nothing but engage in a disappearing act, become the invisible man when Boston went on a 33-10 run in the third quarter to blow them out of the building, out of the state. Having said that, do you know how bad you must be if we forget to mention the league MVP because we're focused on how bad you were? That was James Harden. Now, he might not like me because of what I'm saying. I happen to have a lot of love for James Harden. I think he's a good dude. He's a good person, and I think he's a star caliber player. But damn it, the effort was too flagrant to ignore. James Harden scored 9 points. James Harden shot 3 of 11 from the field, 1 of 5 from 3, finished with 5 turnovers. The Sixers were up 3-2 going into Game 6, where they had an opportunity to close out Boston. And then Game 7, when they had another opportunity to pull it off. In those 2 games, do you know what James Harden did? A combined 22 points and 7 for 27 shooting. That's 26%. 1 of 11 from three-point range. 10 turnovers. Both losses. You know how atrocious you have to be to have numbers like that? That was just an abominable performance. I mean, it was one of those situations where he should shave off his beard just to disguise his identity so no one will know it's him. That's how damn bad it was. Let me give you another stat. Do you know that in the 11 playoff games James Harden played this postseason, 6 against Brooklyn, okay, and the 5 before these last 2, okay, this brother had like 6 games where he shot less than 25% from the field. Obviously, now it's 7 and 8 games. Did you know that in this 7-game series, Harden dropped 45 in Game 1, 42 in Game 4. The other 5 games, he made 4 field goals or less in each of the 5 games. He couldn't even put together 5 field goals. This is a 3-time scoring champion. This is a former league MVP. This is the same dude that led the league in assists this year, that averaged over 20. The only thing worse than James Harden was that sorry, trifling ass Ben Simmons. How the hell you gonna say something about any basketball player? This dude goes on Twitter yesterday, and I tried to be nice to Ben Simmons. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. I started off the season saying give him a chance. How the hell are you talking about a basketball player when you treat putting on a basketball uniform and dribbling on the basketball court to go play, when you treat that as if somebody asked you to get on the front lines in Ukraine to fight Russia? That's how scared he is to play basketball. That's how scared he is. I mean, he's the one that's talking about it. They brought up mental illness. I didn't bring that up. I didn't say anything about that. I'm not making light of something like that. He brought that up. He said that was rationale. He said that he needed therapy. He said that he needed to talk to people. Then it's a back injury. Then it's a knee injury. It's all of these excuses not to play. But that brother never missed a check, though. He always makes sure the check is in the account. Always. And you are talking about James Harden and the 76ers, the team you quit on, the team you left hanging, the team that you were supposed to help deliver a championship as the number 1 overall pick in the draft. You, that's you. Boy, I better not see him. I better not see Ben Simmons. All I'm going to do is look at him. It's going to be one of these. Sorry. That's all I can think. It's not because you play bad. James Harden played bad. And you got to live with that. But he ain't you. At least he showed up. Ja Morant, last summer, allegedly, purportedly got into a fight with a high school kid. Went after knocking him upside his head with the same friend who was with him this time. He went in his house and came outside with a gun. There's still an investigation about that. This February, he and that same friend, who will remain nameless, because he ain't a part of it. He's not the story Ja Morant is. But that same friend, they were in Indianapolis. And there was an investigation made by the NBA because apparently his friend got into it with members of the Indiana Pacers party, which included security, and allegedly a red laser gun was pointed at them. Ja Morant was in that SUV. They couldn't prove that Ja Morant did that, so they kind of let it go. Then you had in March the incident where Ja Morant is at the strip club in Colorado. I forget the name. We're at the strip club, okay? And because he's at the strip club doing his thing, making it rain, waving a gun, Memphis said, suspension. NBA ultimately supported it. 8 games, over $600,000 it cost him. He's supposed to be done with that. April, he bounced out of the playoffs like by LeBron and AD. And now here we are in May. And it happened again. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no excuse for this. I'm not saying it to berate Ja Morant. I'm rooting for the brother. He's a superstar. The game is better because of him. He's box office. You want to see this brother play. I was in attendance when he dropped 45 on the Lakers in a game they lost, by the way. I was there. The brother's special. And he's box office. But I don't want to hear anything at this point about his daddy. I don't want to hear anything at this point about his friends. I don't want to hear anything at this point about the Memphis Grizzlies or any kind of enablers or whatever. You're 23 years old. If you committed a crime and harmed somebody, they try your ass as an adult. This is what it is. Stop making excuses. Everybody want to sit out there, and this is how we enable people, because we want to sit up there and say, you got folks on out there, Ja, do your thing, bro. Live your life. Really? Really? Where that going to get them? Where's that going to get them? What kind of advice is that to give? It's counterproductive. And it's stupid. And not only might it cost him his career, if he keeps on this path, it might cost him his life. You see, some of us are from the streets. We don't look it. We don't act it. We didn't get in trouble and all of this other stuff. But we from that cloth. We know people. I know plenty of dudes that are dead. I know plenty of dudes that's serving time. I know plenty of dudes who've murdered, who've robbed, who dealt drugs. You don't hear me speaking too much against that stuff because they saved my life. They played a role just as much as my family did, they did, because they kept me off the streets, because they knew I wasn't about that life. And if there's one thing they taught me years ago, there is nothing real, true, hardcore street dudes detest more than somebody who ain't made from that cloth and is trying to act like they are. Especially when you don't have to be that way, because you done made it. They're willing to accept the consequences of their actions and deal with whatever it is because they made their choices. But they have no respect for cats who have made it and don't have to live that way and are stupid enough to try anyway. They have no respect for people like that. And neither should most of us. Ja Morant got to get his act together. His career is on the line, because I'm telling you something right now. You remember, this is your boy Stephen A. talking to you. I've been covering the NBA for almost 30 years. I'm telling you, I ain't asking you. Suspension's coming, and it's going to be steep. Could be 25 games. Could be half the season. I got people calling for the entire season. And before I go to break, let me read you from an inside source in the NBA that has direct access to Commissioner Adam Silver, who will decide Ja Morant's penalty, along with Joe Dumars, an executive VP, a former two-time champion with the Pistons. That dude, who's now a czar within the NBA league office. Let me read to you what was sent to me by someone who has direct access to both of them. You can pick up the phone and call him right now. This is what he said. Stephen A. on Ja Morant. Behavior detrimental to the league. Best interest of the game. Those two clauses that are relevant here. Public perception is also important. It is not a right to play in the NBA. It is a privilege. Because the NBA was so lenient in the first incident, a strong message must be sent to Ja Morant, his family, and his boys. Minimum half-season suspension without pay. And if continued misbehavior exists, potential loss of his guaranteed extension. Also, as gambling becomes more profitable as a source of revenue to a league and its teams, players' character and the quote-unquote integrity of the game will be tested and become a more public issue. So the message of prevention of an outside force ever negatively affecting the outcome of a game must be delivered emphatically. That is what Ja Morant is facing. You still think it's a joke? Think again. And then I got some notes here, because you know I'm going to get my notes, right? I ain't just going to speak extemporaneously off the cuff and all of this stuff without having some kind of intel. All right? Well, Ja Morant, okay, because we get a little boiled. So, you know, you got to put on glasses. Okay? His Nike signature shoe release was actually delayed in the wake of his first IG Live gun incident. Similarly, the Grizzly Stars commercial with Powerade was pulled in the wake of that incident that he got in trouble for over a month ago. So what are these brands going to do now? Those are legitimate questions. For y'all. For me, I have answers. That deal going to get compromised. Powerade going to get compromised. Nike going to get compromised. Because we live in different times. And people don't have to tolerate this nonsense. Now, there are those of you who are going to lose your damn mind if you haven't already over this. And I know exactly what you're thinking. What'd he do wrong, Stephen A? What'd he do wrong? He didn't break no laws, Stephen A. Absolutely right. He did not. First of all, we don't know where this latest video occurred. We know it was in an automobile. What we don't know is what state he was in. But we do know that he plays for the Memphis Grizzlies, which is in the state of Tennessee. Other than the fact that they have no state income tax, which is very appealing to somebody such as myself, there's something that's not so appealing to me. Do you know it's a permitless carry state? You do not have to have even a permit to carry a concealed weapon, loaded or unloaded, open or concealed. One of various states throughout our union that doesn't mandate that you have to have a license to carry. So when they say he's not breaking any laws, they're absolutely right. Ja Morant ain't breaking no laws. That ain't the damn point. You idiots. The point is, the NBA has a problem with it. He works for the league. He represents the league. And if the league says, we have a problem with it, we don't condone that. We don't support that. And Nike says the same thing. And Powerade says the same thing. You got a problem. See, we want to walk around. We want to do what the hell we want to do. And this is the type of stuff that bothers me because I make a generic point because I like to touch the masses, not just the few. And I'm trying to tell you, you cannot do what you want to do when you want to do it, how you want to do it, while you got your hand out for somebody's money. I work for the mouse. This podcast is owned by yours truly. I own it. Everybody on this podcast works for me. But I still got to take into consideration the people who are working for me and the kind of jeopardy I put them in because they have a livelihood to protect as well. And you know who else I have to think about? My day job. You know that big mouse that you see everywhere? You know, with amusement parks in Orlando and Anaheim and Shanghai, Lord knows where else. You know that big mouse that's permeated everywhere for decades? Mickey Mouse, to be exact. Walt Disney. They own ESPN. You think that every single thing they want to restrict me from doing, I agree with? Of course not. But there's a bigger picture. And the check that they cut, that I cash, happens to make me smile when I cash it. So guess what? I modify. I capitulate. I don't surrender. I don't sell out. I don't completely strip myself of my authenticity, but I'll be damned if I don't modify or alter my thinking to some degree. And you know what? So did Ja Morant. So did LeBron James. So did Kobe Bryant, God rest his soul. So did Michael Jordan. So did Shaq. So did Barkley. Hell. So did Allen Iverson. I know because I was there. And y'all smart enough and informed enough to know ain't a damn media member alive know Allen Iverson better than me. And that brother, with the cornrows, with the tattoos, with all of that other stuff, go back to 1996, June to be exact, NBA draft. Allen Iverson rolled up there. He didn't even have cornrows. He had a clean-cut haircut with a nice fade, and you couldn't find a tat visible on him because he was trying to get paid. Now, we live in a different time. No question about that. We live in a different time. We live in a time now where everything crazy. One minute we having conversations about men and women. Another day we having conversations about who is a man and who is a woman. One day we having conversations about how much of a mosaic our nation is. And the next minute we having a conversation about Title 42 and how we're expecting immigrants to really flood the boilers seeking asylum from their nations. Once upon a time, You couldn't become the president for having an adulterous affair. Now you could be a freak. Ain't nobody gonna say anything. List goes on and on. The world has changed. We get all of that. But when it comes to business, that's when we dial it back. Because businesses have patrons to appease. They have images to protect. And they're going to say, what's up? This is what we want. You got to capitulate or you got to go.